Here is something that will make you look at your gray hair differently starting today. Gray hair is not a color, it is an absence of one. And that absence is not inevitable. It is, in a significant number of cases, a visible symptom of something happening inside your body at the cellular level. The cells responsible for your hair's pigment are called melanocytes. They live inside your hair follicles, and their only job is to produce melanin, the molecule that gives your hair its color. When melanocytes are well nourished, well oxygenated, and protected from oxidative damage, they produce melanin consistently for decades. When they are deprived of specific compounds that your body cannot synthesize on its own and must obtain through diet, they slow down. Then they stop. What conventional advice never tells you is this. A growing body of research in nutritional biochemistry has identified exactly which compounds melanocytes require, exactly which deficiencies accelerate their decline, and exactly which foods contain the highest concentrations of those compounds. This is not speculative. This is measurable, reproducible, and published in peer-reviewed literature. Today, we are going through 6 of those foods, ranked not by popularity, but by the depth and directness of their biochemical connection to melanin production. And one of them, the one we discuss last, contains a compound that is not just a nutrient for melanocytes. It is the direct molecular raw material from which melanin is constructed. But before we get to that, I need to tell you about the single most underestimated driver of premature graying, a mechanism your doctor almost certainly has never mentioned. That is coming in the next 2 minutes. And stay with me through food number 4, because there is a connection between chronic inflammation, your scalp's microcirculation, and gray hair that almost no nutrition content explains. When I show you the mechanism, you will understand why some people gray decades too early, regardless of their genetics. Why melanocytes really fail. Inside every hair follicle, melanocytes are under constant oxidative pressure. Free radicals generated by UV exposure, systemic inflammation, environmental toxins, and normal metabolic byproducts attack these cells continuously. Melanocytes are particularly vulnerable because melanin synthesis itself generates reactive oxygen species as a byproduct, meaning these cells are oxidatively stressed by the very process they exist to perform. When antioxidant defenses are strong and specific trace minerals are adequately supplied, melanocytes repair the damage and continue functioning. When those defenses are depleted, through poor diet, malabsorption, chronic stress, or age-related decline in nutrient uptake, the damage accumulates faster than it is repaired. Melanocytes enter a state called premature senescence. They stop dividing, they stop producing pigment. The follicle continues growing hair, but that hair grows transparent. The 6 foods in this video each address a specific point in this failure cascade. Not one of them is exotic, not one requires a prescription, and together they cover every major nutritional gap that the research has identified as a driver of accelerated melanocyte decline. Dark leafy greens, particularly organic spinach and kale grown in mineral-rich soil, also provide folate, iron, and copper in bioavailable forms. Folate drives the cell division that regenerates melanocyte populations within the follicle. Iron supports the oxygen delivery those dividing cells require. Absorption note: pairing leafy greens with a vitamin C source, lemon juice, bell pepper, or tomato enhances non-Hem iron absorption by up to 67% according to data from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Food 2. Dark leafy greens, spinach, and kale. Vitamin B12 deficiency is one of the most common and most underdiagnosed nutritional causes of premature graying in adults over 50. A study in the Journal of the European Academy of Dermatology and Venereology found that B12 deficiency was present in a statistically significant proportion of patients with premature canities, the clinical term for premature graying, compared to controls with normal pigmentation. B12 is required for the methylation reactions that maintain melanocyte DNA integrity and regulate the gene expression driving melanin production. Without sufficient B12, these regulatory processes degrade at the cellular level. When a melanocyte ages out, a stem cell divides to replace it. This replenishment process continues for decades when conditions support it. This single pairing habit meaningfully amplifies the nutritional return from every serving. Coming up, food number 3 addresses something that almost no gray hair content discusses: the oxidative assault on melanocytes from the outside in. And food number 4 contains a nutrient that, when deficient, has been shown in multiple independent studies to accelerate graying, a nutrient most people over 55 are not getting enough of. Food 3, sunflower seeds. Selenium is an antioxidant trace mineral that functions as the core component of glutathione peroxidase, the enzyme system that neutralizes hydrogen peroxide inside cells. This is directly relevant to melanocytes because hydrogen peroxide accumulates naturally in hair follicles as a byproduct of normal metabolic processes. In younger, well-nourished follicles, glutathione peroxidase clears this hydrogen peroxide efficiently. Fatty fish provide the most bioavailable dietary form of vitamin D, D3, alongside omega-3 fatty acids that reduce systemic and scalp inflammation, and high-quality, complete protein, providing the amino acid substrate for follicular tissue repair. The reaction simply does not occur. Blackstrap molasses is among the most concentrated dietary sources of bioavailable copper available. A single tablespoon delivers approximately 14% of the daily copper requirement. And unlike copper from synthetic supplements, the copper in blackstrap molasses is bound within an organic matrix that significantly improves intestinal absorption. Beyond copper, blackstrap molasses provides iron, essential for hemoglobin synthesis and oxygen delivery to follicular tissue, and a meaningful spectrum of B vitamins supporting cell turnover in the follicle's germinal matrix. The enzyme responsible for converting tyrosine into melanin, tyrosinase, is a copper-dependent metalloenzyme. Without adequate copper, tyrosinase cannot function regardless of how much of everything else is present. Sunflower seeds are among the highest dietary sources of selenium, delivering approximately 19 micrograms per quarter cup. They also provide vitamin E, a lipid-soluble antioxidant that protects the cell membranes of scalp capillaries and improves microcirculation to follicular tissue, and copper, continuing the pattern of multi-pathway nutritional support. Research published in Dermatology and Therapy found that vitamin D receptor expression in hair follicles directly regulates the differentiation and survival of melanocyte stem cells, the reserve population that replenishes active melanocytes as they naturally turn over. When vitamin D is deficient, melanocyte stem cell populations do not replenish efficiently. Active melanocytes are not replaced as they age out. Follicles progressively lose their pigment-producing capacity, not because melanocytes are destroyed, but because they are not replaced. Quarter cup daily, added to salads, blended into homemade bars, or eaten as a standalone snack. Food 4, fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines. Vitamin D deficiency and premature graying have now been linked in multiple independent studies. Reducing that inflammatory baseline through regular omega-3 consumption removes one of the most consistent biochemical brakes on melanocyte function. 2 to 3 servings per week, wild caught where possible for higher omega-3 concentration, Before we reach the final two foods, including the one that contains the direct molecular precursor to melanin itself, I want to take a moment. If this level of biochemical depth is what you have been looking for, then the Eternal Vigor Way was built for you. We produce research-grounded content specifically for people over 50 who refuse to accept vague answers about their health. People who want to understand the biology, not just follow instructions. If that is who you are, subscribe right now. You will not see this kind of content on most channels. It takes longer to produce, but it is built to last. Subscribe before you forget, and let's finish the list. Food 5. Chickpeas. Chickpeas occupy a unique position in this list because they provide something none of the previous foods deliver at meaningful concentration: tyrosine, the amino acid that is the direct biochemical precursor to melanin. Chickpeas are among the highest plant-based sources of dietary tyrosine, alongside meaningful concentrations of vitamin B6, which supports the enzymatic reactions metabolizing amino acids for pigment synthesis: folate, copper, iron, and zinc. A study in Nutrients examining dietary patterns and hair health outcomes in adults over 50 found that legume consumption frequency was among the strongest dietary predictors of maintained hair pigmentation, independent of age. Per ounce, it delivers approximately 10% of daily copper requirements, meaningful iron, and, most significantly, a high concentration of flavanols, particularly epicatechin and catechin. The threshold matters. Below 70% cacao, added sugar content increases sharply, and sugar-driven glycation generates additional oxidative stress that partially negates the flavanol benefit. At 70% and above, the ratio shifts decisively in favor of benefit. Without adequate tyrosine in the cellular environment of the melanocyte, this entire pathway stalls at the very first step, regardless of copper status, regardless of selenium, regardless of vitamin D. When stem cells sustain sufficient DNA damage, they do not die, they differentiate prematurely. They exit the stem cell niche, become active melanocytes briefly, and then are gone permanently without leaving a replacement. What depletes the stem cell pool is oxidative DNA damage, specifically double-strand breaks in stem cell DNA caused by the very same hydrogen peroxide accumulation and free radical pressure we have been discussing throughout this video. The research has shown that melanocyte loss in aging follicles is not primarily caused by melanocyte death. It is caused by melanocyte stem cell exhaustion. These stem cells, located in a protected niche at the base of the hair follicle called the bulge region, are the source of every active melanocyte your follicle will ever have. When a melanocyte ages out, a stem cell divides to replace it. This replenishment process continues for decades when conditions support it. The anti-inflammatory action of omega-3 fatty acids is relevant here in a way that is rarely explained. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which is measurably elevated in the majority of adults over 55, upregulates pro-inflammatory cytokines that suppress melanocyte differentiation. Flavanols are not merely antioxidants in the general sense. Research published in the Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry demonstrated that epicatechin specifically activates NRF2, a transcription factor that upregulates the body's endogenous antioxidant enzyme systems, including the glutathione peroxidase pathway we identified in Food 3 as the primary defense against hydrogen peroxide accumulation in follicles. And one of them, the one we discussed last, contains a compound that is not just a nutrient for melanocytes. It is the direct molecular raw material from which melanin is constructed. 1 to 2 small squares daily, not a bar, not an occasional treat, a consistent, measured daily dose. The cumulative flavanol exposure over 90 to 180 days is what produces the biological effect. We are almost at the close, but before that, one more thing. If you watched this entire video, you now understand melanocyte stem cell biology, the hydrogen peroxide mechanism, the tyrosine to melanin pathway, and the NRF2 antioxidant system. Most people watching health content online will never go this deep. You just did. The Eternal Vigor Way exists for exactly this. To give people over 50 the depth of understanding they deserve about their own biology, not summaries, not oversimplified lists. The real mechanisms with the research behind them. Subscribe now, because the next video continues this series with the specific nutrient timing and combination strategies that amplify everything covered today. If you watch that video without having watched this one, you will miss the foundation. Subscribe and you won't miss it. A landmark study published in FASEB Journal identified hydrogen peroxide accumulation in aged hair follicles as a primary biochemical mechanism of age-related graying and identified selenium-dependent antioxidant systems as the primary defense against it. And together, they cover every major nutritional gap that the research has identified as a driver of accelerated melanocyte decline. Sunflower seeds provide the selenium that clears hydrogen peroxide from follicular tissue. Fatty fish provide the vitamin D that sustains the melanocyte stem cell population and the omega-3s that suppress the inflammatory cytokines, suppressing melanocyte differentiation. This is not a protocol you will see results from in 2 weeks. The research is consistent. Meaningful changes in hair pigmentation require 90 to 180 days of consistent implementation because hair growth is slow and the biological repair processes being supported operate on that time scale. Consistency over time, that is the mechanism, that is the protocol, and that is the answer your gray hair has been waiting for.